Thank you for joining today's Director Debrief. Updated COVID-19 vaccines are now available for children ages 5 through 11. This expanded eligibility is a critical step in our fight against COVID-19. It's our highest priority to optimize protection so that our children, our future, can remain healthy and protected. I've heard conversations about the updated COVID-19 vaccine that are now available. So let's talk about what you need to know.
Tell us.
The updated vaccines are bivalent,
Oh, yeah.
meaning half of the vaccine formula targets the original SARS-CoV-2 strain, and the other half of the vaccine targets BA4 and BA5 Omicron variants. The updated COVID-19 vaccines are formulated to restore waning protection and to better protect against currently circulated COVID-19 variants.
Just wait for the punchline.
Laboratory data suggests they also increase our immune response to help protect against the most common variants today. If your child is 5 or older, please make sure they have completed the primary vaccine series. And if they have, and it's been at least 2 months since their last COVID-19 vaccine dose, please get them an updated COVID-19 vaccine now.
2 months since their last dose, go get the updated vaccine. Yeah, I paused it at an opportune moment here because I'm not a doctor.
And the same is true for you, so you can be healthy and well to take care of your children and yourself. As we approach the winter months...
Am I projecting, or does it look like she has zero confidence in what she's saying? Like it almost looks like she's a prisoner, a hostage, being forced to recite a speech. Am I projecting, or let me just...
It's critical that we all remain vigilant and stay up to date on COVID-19 vaccines.
Am I projecting, or does she just look very uncomfortable and almost like she doesn't believe what she's saying herself?
If you're eligible, I strongly encourage you to roll up your sleeve and get your updated COVID-19 vaccine today. You can visit vaccines.gov to find a location near you.
This is the director's brief. October 12, people. That's yesterday. This is not something that's months old. This is yesterday. Rochelle Walensky, director of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, knowing what we know now, knowing what we've seen Pfizer execs admitting, knowing what we know now, knowing what we know about certain demographics potentially responding not so good to certain things, knowing what we know now, knowing that, when was it? Was it Bourla just the other day? Knowing what we know now, telling you to go administer this procedure to your 5-year-old and up after you get the primary batch done, and do it if it's been done 2 months or more ago. I'm trying to find the Albert Bourla tweet. Where Bourla, here we go. I think this is it, right? I'm pleased to share with you. This is from Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer. Follow the science, with, spelt with a $sign instead of an S. I'm pleased to share that we have received emergency use authorization from the US FDA for our Omicron adapted COVID-19 jibby jab for children 5 to... How the hell did they get emergency use authorization? Sincere question. Does there not need to be an emergency in order for there to be the issuance of an emergency use authorization in the absence of any existing treatment to treat the emergency? What's the emergency? Right to jail. Right. What's the emergency for 5 to 11-year-olds? And then you get Rochelle Walensky of the CDC up there pushing this, imploring people to get their 5 to 11-year-olds jibby jabbed. What's the emergency? What's the benefits? What's the risk to that demographic? This has been around for 2.5 freaking years. We know the risks to that specific demographic. And it's, don't cite me, virtually non-existent. And they come up and they push this and they continue to push it. despite everything we know, emergency use authorization. Oh, how did that work, FDA? Just like that. It's become the new candy at Halloween. You get emergency use authorization. Everybody gets emergency use authorization for an emergency that doesn't exist. Anyhow, the FDA approval board is a revolving door with Big Pharma. So what do we expect? And someone said I was projecting. She looks like she believes it. I don't believe that she believes it. I don't know what could compel people to behave like this. It's moving at the speed of science was what the Pfizer executive, I think she was an executive, the Pfizer rep, moving at the speed of science is what they said. Oh, well, we didn't know that it didn't protect against transmission because we were moving at the speed of science, which means moving faster than the results that we have to substantiate the claims that we've made publicly. That's not moving at the speed of science. That's moving at the speed of politics. She gets paid big money to read the script. Money, money, money. What good is all the money in the world for he who has sold their soul? I'm mangling that. I'm mangling that proverb from the Bible. Good morning. Good morning. Have to start a little early this morning because I'm going to be alone with the kids for a week. My wife, she has left me for a week. My wife took off, not took off. My wife has work-related stuff that she needs to tend to. And I will be alone with the kids and the dogs for a week. So that means breakfast in the morning, bringing to school, picking up both sets of children, walking the dogs, Winston the blind Westie and Pudge the paralyzed Puggle. So it's going to be a full week for me, but I can do it. I can do it and stream during the day. And we've got a big show today. It still feels weird calling it a show. We're going to discuss a lot of stuff today. Alex Jones, now aggregate between both trials, and I'll use trials in quotes, over $1 billion. But in Connecticut, fair and just damages for the 16 plaintiffs of $965 million. It's so preposterous, and everybody understands it's preposterous. It's just a question of whether you like the insanity or not. It's like that episode of The Simpsons when Chester P. Lampwick is suing the creators of Itchy and Scratchy, Meyer Goldwyn, and he says, "You stole my Itchy and Scratchy." He says, "You come in here and ask for, how much are you asking for again? $800 billion. Well, they got $1 billion. After a non-trial on the merits, we're going to get into this. We're going to go over it. $90 million in just and fair damages to the FBI agent who didn't have a kid at Sandy Hook, who didn't have anyone that he was related to that died. $90 million to an FBI agent because he alleges, and it was a default verdict, Alex Jones called him a crisis actor and questioned him based on an outdated photo of him in an FBI suit. Okay. Kanye West. Remember when PayPal issued that mistake draft? We're going to take $2,500 from your platform, from your bank account, if you violate the rules of our platform, say something misinformation that we don't like. Oh, there was a mistake. They took it back. Well, within the last 24 hours, Cat Turd, and it's not a joke. Cat Turd is on Twitter. It's a big conservative handle. Had his banking. His Cat Turd's a man, a male, right? Had his or her, it's a him, banking canceled the Bank of America. Kanye West, who I believe I'm legally required to call Ye now, JP Morgan Chase. Thank you, Kanye. We no longer want to do business with you. Please close all of your banking, stop doing it with us, and have another account by November 21st. I'm sure that's going to be very easy to do. And I'm going to talk about the Canadian Commission and some other fun stuff. You know, there's an indictment for the fishermen cheaters. For anybody who doesn't know, they got indicted. So on the lighter side of things, standard disclaimers. Question: if YouTube hosted and made money from Alex Jones videos for years after the comments, shouldn't they be sued too? Fair question. How about Law and Crime? Law and Crime made a lot of money during those trials. super chats, ad revenue. No, but they made money documenting. Alex Jones made money with the lies, which let's even operate on that basis. CNN made a lot of money with a lot of lies. Sandman, Trump removing the bust of Martin Luther King. That might have not been CNN. Shithole countries. No. A lot of news made a lot of money off fake news debunked stories. Russia hoax, PP hoax, Steele dossier. No, they made a lot of money. The doors have been opened. And the people who are cheering this on because they like the injustice, be careful what you wish for. Okay, we will be moving over to Rumble soon. Everything looks good. Everything looks good on Rumble. Okay, good. And that's it. We're gonna talk about the Jones first, so that will be on both YouTube and Rumble, and then we'll move over to Rumble. And whatever remainder of the stream goes on Rumble, I'll post it to YouTube tomorrow, a day late, as I do. And before we go on, you may have noticed it said this stream contains a paid promotion because I have sponsors, which is bold and courageous of some sponsors. And today's sponsor of the video, and it's something that I actually am drinking myself, Field of Greens, people. Field of Greens, you've heard it. There's a green powder market. It's called powdered greens. It is a big market, and it's not all the same. And I spent a half an hour on the phone with the doctor of Field of Greens to go over the company and vet it to make sure it was what it was. Field of Greens, it's not an extract and it's not a supplement. It's a food, and it's an organic food, USDA organic. It's called desiccated, which means dried and pulverized. It's like vegetable jerky. Like grind up beef jerky, mix it in water, and you'll get the proteins from the beef. It's desiccated vegetables. 1 spoonful is 1 serving of vegetables. You take it once or twice a day. If you can't get all the vegetables you need, get all the vegetables you need anyhow. And if you can't, it sure as heck is healthier than a soft drink in the afternoon. And it actually tastes good. It looks like swamp water because it basically is, for the healthiest possible reasons, nutrients, vegetables, desiccated vegetables. And you stir it around and you drink it, and it doesn't taste bad at all. Actually tastes good. And if you can't get your vegetables in your diet every day like you should, a spoonful with a glass of water goes down, and it's delicious. And no, it's not defecated vegetables. When I was on the call with the doctor, I thought that's what he said. F and S on the interwebs and on telephones sound quite similar. So when I say my name is Freiheit, people often hear Freiheit. Desiccated, dried, pulverized. It's a food, it's not a supplement, and it's not an extract. And it's USDA organic, made in America, and it's damn good. Okay. Jones. $965 million in the Connecticut case. You'll recall in the Texas case, it was a modest, a mild, a reasonable $45 million, which included punitive damages, which are going to be reduced because Texas has a cap on punitive. From what I understand, this is Connecticut. These are not punitive damages. These are compensatory damages, and there is no limit on compensatory damages. So barring an appeal, and a successful appeal, because it will be appealed, barring a successful appeal, a jury can award whatever they want by compensatory damages, and there's no limit. I mean, no limit in a factual sense, and no limit in a moral sense. Whether or not you think Alex Jones is guilty is one thing. People were making comparisons. O.J. Simpson, in his wrongful death lawsuit that was filed by Anna Nicole, not Anna Nicole Smith. Oh, his wife, Nicole Smith Brown. Filed by his wife and Goldman's family. They got roughly the same amount for wrongful death against the individual who caused the wrongful death in the civil trial. People are, this is so light years beyond anything that the world has ever seen. If it doesn't get successfully overturned, enjoy the world that we have ushered in. This is beyond a First Amendment issue. You go to social media, and Barnes and I have talked about this. We're going to go through all the points, and I'm going to steel man the case against Jones, as I've done since the beginning. And I'm going to sensitize everybody that even if, and I'll say, even if you believe Alex Jones said the things he said, which I think we can all agree on, you believe they were defamatory, hurtful, etc., which I think we can mostly agree on. Even if you believe all of that, even if you believe he defaulted on his obligations, his discovery obligations in the trial, even if you believe that, the way this trial went down, a default verdict followed by a trial in which, on the quantum, in which the defendant didn't have his hands tied behind his back, he had duct tape placed over his mouth. Even if you agree to all of that, you cannot accept the outcome of this, if only as a matter of principle and law. But that seems to have been pushed by the wayside, given the politics and the emotions in this case. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Did Norm Pattis expects the total final judgment to be increased to 2 to 2.5 billion total, because it's 965 million compensatory damages. Thus far, I don't think they've adjudicated on punitive. They haven't adjudicated on legal fees. I mean, legal fees, as if the legal fees, which might be 20% of any judgment. I don't understand anything you're saying, but I like hearing you talk. Sorry for got mig. You're going to understand it because we're going to go step by step now. The veggies are freeze-dried, ground fine, and put under vacuum again, then sold to lawyers, sometimes desiccated lawyers. Well, okay. Let's start from the beginning. People on the interwebs, point number one that you're going to have to either respond to or understand is false. He had his trial. No, he didn't. Now, that's not to say he didn't go through the process. Alex Jones, on the merits of the defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress, went through the process to some extent, never had a trial. There was never a jury trial finding culpability, responsibility on the defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. There was no jury trial in this case. Understand that. There was no jury trial on the merits, on the substance of the lawsuit. How can that be? How can that be? And this is where you're going to have to get into the second point. You're going to say to someone, sir, the false memory that you have and the false memory that society as a whole is going to have in 10 years is that Alex Jones went through a trial on the merits. It was a month long in Connecticut. They talked about all of the evidence on the merits. They talked about the statements he made. They talked about everything, the school, the children, the families, everything. There was a trial on the merits. It lasted 4 weeks. That's going to be the collective memory to those who have forgotten or were not there at the time in a decade. No. It's not a question of partisan spin. There was no trial on the merits because the judge, usurping the powers of the jury, usurping the entire trial by jury, says Alex Jones did not comply with discovery requests. He's not only foreclosed from pleading, foreclosed from defending. I issue a default guilty verdict against Alex Jones. He's defaulted so badly, he's not going to trial. Not only is he not going to trial, the plaintiffs aren't going to trial. The plaintiffs are not going to have to prove their case, even in the absence of a defendant. I grant the plaintiff's motion by default verdict. No jury trial. Understand that. And then you're going to have to navigate the second point of this. There was no jury trial on the merits. The judge, by default verdict, bypassing a jury altogether, bypassing evidentiary hearing on the merits, declared guilty Alex Jones of intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation. And then they went to a jury trial on quantum alone, after the finding of culpability had already been done by the judge by virtue of default verdict. Okay, we understand that now. Point one. Now you're going to say that to someone and they're going to say, well, Alex Jones had his chance and he effed around and he found out. Okay. The argument is going to be Alex Jones refused. This is not the argument. This is how it happened. Allegedly, the court says Alex Jones failed to comply with discovery requests. He was asked to sit down. He was asked to communicate documents. He communicated millions of emails, text messages, yada, yada, yada. But he did not communicate, or he said he did not have Google Analytics, certain financial information that the plaintiffs wanted to prove that he made money off of the lies and the statements at issue. He did not fully comply with discovery. It's undoubtable and undeniable that he complied to some extent, produced, according to some, more documents than any defendant in history would have. I mean, I don't know how you compare that, but produced hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of emails, texts, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to hear people say, because this is how it happened. The court found Alex Jones effed around. He did not disclose information. He concealed documents. He said he didn't have things that we think he had. Therefore, he refused to comply with discovery requests. He had his opportunity and he played around. F around, find out, guilty by default verdict. That's how it happened. Now, whether or not Alex actually had the things that the court said he was not producing, let's even assume that he did. One thing that is clear, you're going to say that's what happened. He effed around, he found out. All he had to do is, he had his day in court. He had many days in court. He did not comply. He screwed around. He lied, yada, yada. He got what he deserved. Okay. That's the way it happened. The argument to that is going to be, even if it's true that Alex Jones concealed, lied about having text messages relating to Sandy Hook, lied about not having access to or not using Google Analytics, these issues in the normal run of justice, at the very worst, might lead to some monetary sanctions, maybe some civil contempt, maybe even criminal contempt. But the plaintiffs would still have to go to court, to a jury, and prove their case. Ordinarily, I mean, even in the worst case scenario of an ordinary realm of justice, what would happen? Jones would be foreclosed from defending. He wouldn't be able to present evidence of his innocence. Most of the time, what that means is that even though he would be declared foreclosed from pleading, he can't defend himself, but he can still cross-examine plaintiffs on their evidence. That's what would happen in a normal run of things, even in the most extreme circumstances. The plaintiffs would still have to go to court, still have to prove their case before a jury. Think about it this way. Someone says, we had a contract. He agreed to pay me $100,000, I don't know, for re-roofing the house. I re-roofed the house. He didn't pay. Okay. I have the contract. Yeah, whatever. Let's just say the defendant tries to delete text messages where he said, yeah, I'm not paying you, whatever. Okay. There's evidence that the defendant tried to destroy evidence beyond conceal, tried to destroy it. Well, you still have to go to court and prove you had a contract and the work was done. It's not, the judge does not get to say, well, okay, this guy destroyed some evidence, so I'm just going to presume that you have won your case. Maybe, I mean, I can't even think of a theoretical example where that could be the appropriate sanction. I have to presume you made your case because of the egregious abuse by the defendant. Maybe there's a hypothetical. In this case, and as we've seen during the trial, it wasn't the case. At the very best, even if we grant Alex Jones failed to disclose text messages about Sandy Hook, failed to communicate Google Analytics, these are secondary issues to the defamation itself. To bear in mind also, this is defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're talking quantum and secondary aspects. Plaintiffs necessarily have to have these statements themselves, which are defamatory, and then maybe they can argue negative inferences from Jones's conduct as relates to other stuff. But the judge, seizing on these in Connecticut, and then the Texas judge seized on this default to also issue the default verdict in Texas, says, no, Alex Jones didn't fully comply with discovery. Therefore, I grant the plaintiff's case without them even having to prove the merits of it to a jury. Hold on, Rubia's in the house, and now I want to see what Rubia had to say. Rubia is a Texas attorney, and I don't think she's very sympathetic. Rubia, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't think, from my recollection, that you're actually very sympathetic to Jones as an individual as relates to the statements. If I'm wrong, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. But even people who hate Jones and think he deserves something have to agree here. These out-of-control verdicts are harmful to our society. Teaches lottery justice or lottery injustice. So people are going to say, Alex Jones, after around, all he had to do was comply. I would argue, as would others, there was nothing Jones could ever do to fully comply with discovery, but we'll never know that because that alternate universe will never occur. Even if we grant that he did not comply in the way the court said he did not comply, it's absurd. It's untenable legally and just as a matter of pure justice to say he didn't provide Google Analytics, although they had all of the evidence at trial. We'll get to that in a second. He messed around so badly that not only is he foreclosed from defending, default verdict, without the plaintiffs even having to prove their case to a jury. It's inconceivable. Okay, that's the other argument. Let's go one step further. Anybody who watched this trial, all he had to do was F around and find out. All he had to do was fully comply. All he had to do was fully comply. All right, well, one thing is clear. Then you say, well, he did fully comply. They got everything they needed because they had it all at trial. They had the Google Analytics. They had the text messages. People are going to say, oh, well, they got it. They got it, but they got it too late. He should have done it when they said, therefore the punishment is just. If that's the game that people are going to play, that the judge holds the sword of Damocles at any given moment capriciously, in the absence of irreparable harm to the plaintiff's ability to make their case, can say, case closed, default verdict, they don't even have to prove their case. Be careful what you wish for. Because one thing is clear, when you got to trial, and I was watching this trial, and I think most people are saying he denied them evidence. Well, you saw at this trial, which was only on the quantum, they had all the evidence under the sun. They had Google Analytics. They had the text messages. They had all the videos that they needed. So whether or not he concealed it, delayed it, didn't give it to them in time, that's what civil contempt is for, a fine a day until you comply. They had all of this information, and it was submitted as evidence during the trial. So people are going to say he had his jury trial. He didn't. It was a default verdict, jury trial on the quantum. F around and find out he didn't fully comply. Okay, even if he didn't, the sanction is absolutely untenable. And besides which, they had all the evidence that he allegedly didn't give, whether he gave it late, whether or not they had to twist his arm. Okay, that's what civil sanctions are for. Civil contempt sanctions are for. Let's get to the quantum now. $120 million to one of the plaintiffs, $90 million to the FBI agent. In a trial, by the way, in a trial where even in this trial on the quantum, Jones could not make certain statements about his own innocence. Now, people don't know this because they didn't watch the trial. The Waukesha killer is getting more deference than Alex Jones. A man who actually plowed his vehicle, killing 6 people, is getting more deference in his right to a defense. Yes, it's criminal. And yes, it's somewhat different, criminal versus civil. Alex Jones made statements and didn't carry out acts. He didn't carry out the underlying acts that are at issue here, the most horrific acts imaginable. He was not allowed at trial to talk about the fact that he allegedly didn't make any money, or he didn't make the millions that were being alleged he made specifically off the Sandy Hook coverage. He wasn't allowed to testify that he apologized multiple times. He wasn't allowed to testify what else? That he didn't mean to cause them harm. Because recall, people, the judge unilaterally issued a default verdict that he was guilty of intentional infliction of emotional distress. Well, you can't say it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. I feel guilty about it if it was intentional infliction of emotional distress. I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, no, that's right. He couldn't even say that he didn't mean to do it without being held in contempt. So the judge issues the default verdict without any trial on the merits in front of a jury. And then in the jury trial on quantum, effectively says Jones cannot say anything to mitigate the quantum, apologized, retracted, didn't intend to cause harm because of her prior default verdict order. And then they issue a total of $965 million in real, just and fair damages to the defendants, to the plaintiffs. So that's where it's at. It's a systemic procedural injustice. You might think Jones deserves something, and people don't like me for it because I've said it from the beginning. Yeah, he said some tremendously stupid things. I think had he gone to trial, he could have, probably been found responsible for defamation, for intentional infliction of emotional distress. But there were other issues in this case. Statute of limitations was one on the merits. That's the other purely hypothetical. Let's just say that in my hypothetical roof repair, the guy destroyed the contract, but you waited 5 years to sue. Well, it doesn't matter if you waited. It doesn't matter if he destroyed the contract and did everything terrible if your action had lapsed as a matter of statute of limitations. And so you need to go to trial and prove the essential elements of the existence of the claim, one of which is that it's not time barred. And that was potentially an issue here. He could be guilty as guilty can be. He could have said the most offensive, insane things imaginable. If the plaintiffs are time barred, that's a defense that goes beyond the guilt of the individual if they did not file the lawsuit within the required time frame. Couldn't do that. But there are people on Twitter, they love it. They love it because they hate Alex Jones so much, they'll ignore an injustice because they hate the person against whom the injustice is being perpetrated. So that's it. Did I miss anything on this? The trial was a Kafka-esque show trial. I mean, in the purest of senses, he was already guilty. He couldn't assert any statements in his own defense. He could not answer questions freely without the risk of being held in contempt, as the judge vocally and repeatedly announced to the court she would not hesitate to hold him in contempt of court. This makes me feel good. I'll tell you this. This actually makes me feel good, Rubia. Thank you. Because I got in trouble. Like, people don't like it. I said, yeah, he said very stupid things. And if this were done properly, he probably would have been found liable to some on some of the statements. The punishment as well should only be proportionate and reasonable. But what happened here is an injustice, a procedural injustice that nobody cares about now because it's Alex Jones. In the same way they didn't care when they deplatformed Alex Jones. Oh, and then all of a sudden they start deplatforming people you do like, and like procedural injustice. Well, too bad, you already ratified that. $965 million. I mean, I don't want to compare it to wrongful death lawsuits, but I will. Alex Jones didn't kill anybody. Alex Jones had nothing to do with the tragedy. He made very careless, factually incorrect, and hurtful statements on limited occasions afterwards. And this guy's gonna get ordered to pay by orders of magnitude more than medical malpractice, more than actual murder, more than actual wrongful death. I mean, people have lost their minds. People have lost their minds. I want to feel this one. Cheryl Graham, thank you, Viva, for supporting Alex. I'm not supporting Alex per se. I'm supporting the principle here. I happen to think Alex has been vilified disproportionately so. He certainly says things which are hyperbolic, etc. And the things about Sandy Hook were just dumb. But, the gay frogs business, okay, some people can find that offensive. I said after I had Alex on the show, he describes things in hyperbolic manners. When he says the cell towers are mind control, well, people laugh at that and say it's stupid. But the only difference between mind control and mind interference is sort of like this superpower ability. But some types of control actually involve destruction. So if people can control someone's mind by interfering with it and destroying its ability to function properly, sound waves, pulsars, things like that are types of weapons. They don't control, but they certainly interfere with. And it's a known fact that cell towers, frequencies from cell phones interfere with sleep patterns. And in that sense, Alex Jones calls it mind control to be hyperbolic, but it's certainly interference with certain bodily functions. And so in that sense, fact check false, but substantively kind of there's some truth to it. But I'm not defending Alex for what he said stupid things. We're defending a principle, we're defending a process. And if we're not, the process itself is gone. And the process is what ensures that it doesn't happen unjustly to someone you like. When it happens unjustly to someone you don't like, people tend to look the other way. Work hard, you'll sleep just fine. I can assure you that is not true. In fact, it seems that the harder I work, the worse I sleep, because I wake up in the middle of the night thinking of things that I should not be thinking about. Rubio, we must allow speech. It is the basis of our society. If somebody lost their livelihood or had specific damages, then I think it makes a lot more sense, but this is crazy. And then the argument is going to be, well, people harassed the family, and Alex Jones directed them to do that. I watched the trial. The evidence was actually contrary to that. First of all, Alex Jones never asked encouraged anybody to go harass them. The evidence actually was that they were being harassed, and some of these lies that are attributed to Alex Jones were being made prior to and were popular even before Jones covered it. But we didn't have a hearing on the merits. We only had a hearing on the merits of the quantum because the judge said, I declare Alex in nuclear default of his obligations to comply with discovery. I declare him guilty by default verdict. No need for a jury, that pesky little jury of your peers, things that, fundamental justice. I declare him guilty. Now let's go to a trial by jury on the quantum. But by the way, Alex Jones, here's the things you can't say. I apologize. I regret it. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. I didn't make any money off of it. And I corrected myself. Can't say those things. So get up on the stand. And if you venture into those areas, I'm going to put you in jail. Okay, that's what you need to know, I think, about the Jones trial. If I've missed anything, we'll get to it on Rumble. Let's move over to Rumble. I keep forgetting. No, I pinned the link. Here, let's do this one more time here. I don't think I missed anything. And we can go through the damages per family. Mark Shaw, if I ever need a lawyer, Viva's on top of my list. I can't do it because I could not deal with the crushing defeat that Pattis is dealing with. Pattis gets up there. You work your tail off. And then you get slapped with this. It's like, okay, he didn't even need to be there. Pattis didn't even need to be there. It wouldn't have been any worse than this. Pattis was principled, was respectful, conducted this trial professionally. The outcome would have been no worse had they had a squid in a jar representing Alex Jones. I can't deal with that level of defeat. Maybe it makes me a coward. Or too sensitive. I also just can't tolerate these types of injustices. When banks and PayPal can shut you down and take your money for free speech dies. Redacted. Well, that's a good segue. Kanye West. There's so many things wrong with what happened to Kanye. And by the way, just so everybody knows, I put the stream up. I will put this full stream up on YouTube tomorrow. Let us go over to Rumble so that we can reward the company that actually respects free speech. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to end it here. Everyone's got the link to move over, and I'll put it in the pinned comment afterwards. We're going to remove YouTube from the stream and go into Rumble. Exclusive in 3, 2, 1.